This is one of my favorite times of year. It's when I ask, what story is my money telling me? We recently did our year-end review using Monarch. It took about 15 minutes, and the biggest thing we spent money on in 2025 was travel and vacation. When I looked at the number, I didn't feel any guilt, I didn't feel any shame, and honestly, I wasn't surprised. It was just confirmation of what was most important to us in 2025. I'm gonna show you how I do a year in review in Monarch and why you should steal this process. But before I jump in, I would love to know, what's the process that you use to review your spending at the end of the year? Do you do any type of review of your yearly spending and income? Do you use Monarch Money to do it? What are you looking at? I'm going to show you the specific areas in Monarch that I use, but I'd love to know what other people are using as well. So there are a couple of different ways you can do this year-end review. I'm going to be doing it from my phone, and then I'll also show how you can do it from your computer. I'm doing it from my phone because that's typically when I am using this Monarch app. If I'm sitting on my computer, then I feel like I'm doing work, and whenever I'm thinking about my own personal money, I want it to be over a casual conversation. I don't want it to feel like work. So when Damien and I did this recently, we were out at a brewery having a date night. We took a couple minutes to take a look at things in here, to have some discussion about how we felt about the spending we did last year, and to think about how we want to change for the next year. And so I'm going to show you on my phone how I do this. You're not going to get that same flexibility as if you were running reports from your computer in Monarch Money, but I feel like you can still get to the same conclusion. So inside of Monarch Money on your phone, you're going to find the cash flow section. Before you do this, you definitely want to make sure that your transactions are up to date, because if your transactions are not categorized correctly, then you're not going to get accurate information about how much income you had coming in and where your money actually went. So this is not going to be very helpful for planning purposes and reflection purposes if you don't actually have your transactions up to date. So hopefully you've been keeping up with that throughout the year, but if not, that would be the first thing you want to do, is to review those transactions and make sure they're good to go. Once you've done that, then you'll click on the cash flow section on your phone, and in here you can filter down by year. So I'm going to do yearly. I'm going to click on the calendar, and then I'm going to click on yearly, and that's going to take me down to the different year views. And then I'm going to select the year that I am wanting to examine my money. And so that would be 2025. So on that bar graph, you're going to see a green part of the bar, and you're going to see a red section of the bar. The green part is your income. The red represents your expenses. You're also going to see a white line. That white line is the savings rate. If you're in the green, then that means your expenses were less than your income over the total year. And then if you're in the red, then that means you spent more than your income in that year. So if you keep scrolling down, you can see the actual numbers. You'll see it broken down by income, expenses, and savings. That income number is the total income from all of the income sources that you had coming in, and then the expenses are all of the expenses that went out. And then the savings is just that income minus the expenses number. This savings amount may not be super important to you depending on how you view savings. For me, what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of my savings is, how much did I put into my savings account for long-term savings? So what did I put into my investment accounts? What did I put into my Roth IRA, into my brokerage, into my taxable account? And so this savings number here may not be reflective of that. Just keep that in mind. But it is a good view to be able to see, like, of the money that did come in last year, how much of it did I not spend yet? And then you can click directly on that savings number, and it'll show you the percentage of your total income that was saved according to how this is calculated here. All right, as you scroll down, it's going to break down that income into the individual sources of income that you have, and you can see the percentage that you earned via each of your income sources. So on my example here, you see Melanie's paychecks, and then you see John's paychecks, and then you see interest, and you can see how those contributed to the income. I like to see this broken down, because then if you know that your income is going to change over the next year, maybe Melanie's not going to be working next year and you're only going to be dependent on John's income, then you'll have an idea of how that's going to change your income for the next year, or if your income is going to be reduced. So for me, when I am setting up Monarch Money, I don't want one big lump sum category for all paychecks, especially if there's two people working. Then I want to have separate paycheck areas for each person. And then if there are other income sources such as RSUs or bonuses or side hustles, then I also would add additional income categories for that, just because it's going to make it easy when you do a review like this and to plan for the next year, the next month, or the next couple of months if you've got it broken down in that way. So first I'm just looking at the income to see what income came in, where did it come from? And then the next section is the expenses. And this is the part that is really important to me at the end of the year, especially, is seeing where did most of my money go. The way that it's organized inside of here is it's starting with the expenses that you spent the most on, and then it's in order from the highest expense to the least expense. So like I mentioned earlier, for my personal spending this year, travel and vacation was that top one, and then right below that there was like groceries and dining out, mortgage. I may have those a little bit out of order, but it went something like that. So then I could see the order of it, the exact dollar amount of it, and I could start asking myself, do I feel good about these numbers? Do I feel good about how much I spent on each of these things? Do I feel good about what's at the top of my expenses versus what's at the bottom? Or do I want to shift this stuff around a little bit? Okay, so anyhow, it's expenses, highest expense, lowest expense. You can scroll through just to get that snapshot view of how much did you spend on each one and start have those conversations, like I said. And these can be a conversation with your partner if you are with someone. If you're by yourself, this is a conversation to have by yourself. These are questions to ask yourself and to plan. You can click directly on each of these categories here, and it's going to show you the transactions inside of each one. I'm just going to click back, or you can break it down into other ways to see it as well. So you can click on group, and that's going to show the bigger groupings if you've got those bigger groupings inside of Monarch Money, depending on how you set it up. And then you can also see it by merchant. So this one I think is kind of cool because you can see which merchant got the most of your money in 2025. So in this example, we can see Tesla was the one with the highest expense for the year. So this may be cool for you to see how much did I spend on Amazon, or insert whatever place you tend to frequent, and you can really get that big picture view and start to decide, am I okay with that amount that I spent at even that one particular merchant, or do I want to make a change as I'm moving into the new year? So that's one way to do the review of your spending, is by using this cash flow section. That's my favorite way, of course, because you can easily do it from your phone. The other way is to do it from your computer and to go to the report section. So let me jump over to that. Okay, so if you're a Monarch Money on your computer, then you can use the report section in order to do your year-end review. And again, this report section is going to give you a lot more flexibility with different ways that you can filter. So the first thing you'll want to do is to select the date, of course, the same way we did on the other one, clicking last year. And then for filters, if you wanted to filter and see specific things, you've got a lot more flexibility into how you can filter different things out to run different reports, to look at your spending in different ways. I'm not going to go through that, but you can play around with that if you're interested. If you're looking just from kind of a similar standpoint as how we were on the computer, you can see that same overview of the total income, total expenses, total net income or savings at the top. And then you get this different view, this different visual view, this Sankey diagram. The Sankey diagram is going to break down your income sources first, and then your total income, and then finally your savings compared to your expenses. On the diagram, it's going to show the expenses in that same order of the things you spent the most on to the things you spent the least on. One difference is that you'll see the groupings here, and then from the big group, you'll see them broken down into the individual categories. So the big group is auto and transport. The individual categories within auto and transport are auto payment, auto maintenance, gas, and writing expenses. So that's one of the differences that you will see here if you are using the Sankey diagram. You can also see a couple of other views if you wanted to switch from the Sankey diagram. You can see it in a bar view. Of course, you'd want to make sure that you change it back to yearly so you can see that comparison. But if you do this bar view, you're not going to see the breakdown of the individual categories. The Sankey is the one that's going to give you the breakdown of all the individual categories on this cash flow screen here. You could also go over to the spending section and see only the spending broken down into this donut chart or into a bar graph. Let's see if this will refresh to show you. Let's try again. Or you can do it into a bar graph. You can also do that for the income as well to see it in different ways. So you could play around in this report section and run many different reports, filtering out different things that you don't want to actually see and only including the things that you want to see in your incoming expenses for the year. If you needed a little bit more control over what data you're actually seeing, then this is where you can do that. That is two different ways that you can review your spending for the year, doing it from your phone or doing it from your computer, using the cash flow option or using the reports option. I'd love to know what you guys are using. If this video was helpful, if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment to let me know how you are tracking your money over the course of a year. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you in the next one.